That was, we're now going to move to news from the US, where Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says he was threatened with a criminal indictment by the Trump administration over congressional testimony he gave last summer about a federal building renovation project. Powell said grand jury subpoenas were served to the Fed on Friday, calling the action a pretext aimed at pressuring the central bank to lower interest rates. The White House declined to comment, referring questions to the Department of Justice. The move comes amid continued tensions, with Trump demanding sharp rate cuts and criticizing the Fed's policies. Powell had testified in June that renovation work was necessary to update outdated infrastructure, and even gave Trump a tour of the site in July. Ross Feingold now joins me in this discussion. He's a political analyst from Taipei in Taiwan. Ross, what's your assessment of the situation?
The battle between Jerome Powell and President Trump is well documented. It's been very public throughout 2025 after President Trump returned to office, and this seems to be the latest skirmish in that ongoing battle. But eventually, Powell's term as chairman will come to an end later this year. President Trump will nominate and get confirmation in a Republican-controlled Senate of somebody that Trump believes will be more cooperative with what Trump wants to do with regard to interest rates. So hopefully, for the sake of smooth relations between the White House and the federal government and the Fed, this will go away without criminal charges against Powell. The investigation is obviously heavily politicized. Again, it does seem to be part of this ongoing dispute between the two, but hopefully it will end and we will move on once there's a new Fed chairman.
All right, sure. And how do you think the criminal charges that have been invoked and the prosecution will follow will pay for Powell? Ross, could you hear me?
Hi, can you still hear me?
Yeah, please go on.
There is a history of prosecutions with regard to testimony in Congress, but they're rare, and it's very hard to win a conviction. So will prosecutors bring an indictment and bring this case to trial? It's possible, but the prosecutors know that this would take a lot of effort, it would be heavily politicized, and they won't necessarily get a guilty conviction. So at this stage, it's an investigation, and we'll see how it actually ends up and whether or not there'll be an indictment.
Powell is also now saying that he was threatened with a criminal over congressional testimony that he had given regarding the Fed renovation project. He's also saying that he'd given Trump a tour of the building, stressed on the need for infrastructure overhaul. In that regard, do you think this is really personal enmity gone wrong?
It appears that's the case. President Trump has been very outspoken with regard to his displeasure about interest rates and the Fed's reluctance to lower them quickly or to a number that Trump wants. So clearly there's a large amount of personal dislike and distrust between the two men. And the Justice Department has made it clear that they are willing to take instruction from President Trump when it comes to opening investigations into certain politicians. And Powell is inherently a political figure because he's a political nominee confirmed by the Senate, even though we like to think that the Fed is independent. But the Justice Department has really changed from past practice where they would have some independence from the White House. And that's just the reality of where we are in 2026 for American politics. But Trump said he would do this as far as investigating political enemies, and the voters put him into office. So if the voters don't like it, they could vote for the Democrat in 2028.
Now, he's also made it clear in his video message, Jerome Powell, that it's not really just about congressional oversight. It's about and he says these are just pretext, but it's really the threat of criminal charges. He's saying is a consequence of Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public rather than following the preferences of the president. Please do make your comment on that statement.
This is what in American politics we call an institutionalist. Powell is not just thinking about himself or what interest rates should be at the moment. He's also thinking about the future and the future of the independence of the Fed. And for someone like Powell, that this is very important to protect the institution, not today, but also for the future, not with regard specifically to President Trump, but future presidents as well. And I think that thinking about protecting the institution really does inform a lot of his decision making as well as his public statements.
All right. Thank you very much, Ross, for your opinions in this discussion, but do stay on with me. Moving on, viewers, European Commission President